Hello, fellow audiophiles. Coming at you from Sky-Fi Audio in Glen Rock, New Jersey. Today we've got something pretty special for you. We are the folks that brought to you unboxing recently of the Marantz 10B tuner. Well, we've got another great surprise for you. We've got an unboxing of a Marantz Model 500 amplifier. It's a 250 watt amplifier, vintage from the 70s, a wonderful piece. Recently came to us from a collector that was assembling a fairly large system, and we got two of these Model 500s, both in the box. One is used, lightly used, which we will be selling on our website, skyfiaudio.com. And this one, well, we're not sure if this is a new old stock or lightly used or brand new. We don't really know. So I thought we'd make a video, share it with your viewers so we can get your opinions, and at the same time, have some fun with it. Go through the features, functionality, the manuals, and all the things that come with the Model 500, just as if you had bought it brand new from the factory a million years ago. So here it is, the Model 500. As you can see, there's a nice artwork on the box itself showing the layout with the meters and the controls. And this is the inner box. We pulled this out of this particular box. It's hard to do on camera, so we thought we'd jump right to it. This is the outer box with an interesting notation, not to stack more than 5 of these. Well, these weigh over close to 100 pounds each, so at 500 pounds, by the time you get to the 5th one, it would put some strain on the lower one. So this is a Super Scope product from Marantz Model 500. And then with the tag, there's always some evidence of where it came from. This particular unit came from Super Scope Warehouse. So this was Super Scope Warehouse would have been Marantz, and it was shipped to GW Ryan Distribution Company at Kansas City. Well, this item came from Kansas, so this all makes sense. From Missouri, from Kansas City. There's a customer number on it with a 122.5 or 9. I can't really make out that last number there. I imagine that's the date code on it. 98. All right, so not much else to look at on the outer box. Let's take a spin at the inner box. Would have been closed with staples. Those have already been removed. This unit has been out of its box. We can tell that by the plastic and the fact that the staples were removed. What we're not sure is whether it was used or not. Here's some more designations. And then on this side, looks like a picture of the back cover of the amplifier itself. All right, let's take a look inside, see what we've got. So far, so good. Got a Model 500 service manual, and I suspect that it's a mounting plate or the template for the mounting. This should be a service, not just a service manual, but also an instruction manual in there, and then all the necessary warranty cards and all the other bits. We'll go through this in more detail later. First thing you notice is there's no styrofoam here. This was the days when cardboard was king. So let's see, it's a clamshell design using a gazillion layers of corrugated cardboard. There you go. This is the top clam. Put it aside. All right, let's have a look at the amp. As you can see, it's wrapped in plastic, but the plastic's kind of wrinkled and a bit torn here in the corner, so I suspect this has been opened before. There's a label here warning us not to clean the front panel with any sort of solvents. These units had a beautiful champagne gold anodized aluminum front panel, and if you were to use some sort of solvent to clean it, you would essentially remove the top layer, the clear coat, which is a bummer, and immediately ruin it. The clear coat was put on there to eliminate fingerprints and to keep the lettering in place. So we've got the power cord neatly wrapped up, quite a beefy power cord, and not much else. So let's Oh yeah, another thing I noticed is it's kind of cool, the front cover to the lower speaker section is sitting there in the box. And then in the front, you can just make out there's like a red warning label on the front speaker post as well, telling us how to connect this thing. All right, I'm gonna pause the video and we'll get this out of the box completely and continue the unveiling of the Marantz 500. All right, I've managed to wrestle this heavy amplifier out of the box without breaking anything. It's quite a feat, even though it's got handles, it's hard to pull out of its cardboard. Show what that looks like. This is the packing cardboard that the amp was sitting on, together with the paperwork and this looks to be the cover for the speaker terminals. I'll talk a bit more about that later. So yeah, we unbagged the unit, pulled it out of the box, and here it is, absolutely in wonderful condition. It's got its protective film on the faceplate, although it looks like it's been removed before because it does have a slight tear here from it. So let me finish removing it. And setting it aside. Here's a close-up of it. All the knobs are in the right positions. The binding posts are tightened in place. I don't see any corrosion on the RCA jacks. And the meters are super clean. There's no signs of scratching from cleaning or anything like that. Also, these tend to accumulate dust in the corners here, and it's pretty clean as well. There are no rack screw marks on the rack mounts. And the telltale sign of an amplifier that's been used is, you know, sort of grease and finger marks around the knobs, especially around the gain knobs themselves. Moving on to the side, the cabinet is super clean. I see the fan right there for the cooling tunnel that it has. The top has the original stickers on it, also untouched. And it's super clean. I don't see any scratches or anything of that sort. And all the screw heads are probably like the day they left the factory as well. All right, having a look at the back. There's a beefy power cord. That is some power cord. Not sure what gauge that is, but obviously it's whatever's required to have this much power. Moving on to the back, there's a shot at the fuse panel. C model 500, crafted in the USA with a patent number below it. And let's have a close look at the tag on it. Looks like 1658 is their serial number. Those of you that know a lot about Marantz, I'd love to hear back from you as to what year of manufacture this might have been. The rating for voltage is 105 to 125 volts, so this would probably work in a foreign market as well, maybe an Asian market, and 300 watt consumption. Give it another flip. So look at the cooling towers. All right, let's look at the manual and see what we got here. So this looks like the service manual. Model 500. Looks fairly new. Have a look at the specs. So they're claiming 250 watts RMS into 8 ohms with that's funny, with typically greater than 300 watts. So I guess it's a conservative rating, the 250 watts. That's where the model number comes from. The 500 is obviously the sum of both left and right channels, 250. Harmonic distortion is at 0.05, which is pretty good for this period. And they are specifying the frequency range, which some of them don't. Noise, 160 dBs. Some square wave response, I'm not sure what you do with that. And the power requirements, this is neat. So let's see, at 120 volts, I'm just specifying the fuse type. There's really nothing else that's useful out of here. Weight is 83 pounds. Wow, I thought it was more like 60, 83 pounds. No wonder it's so hard to move around. 88 pounds in a packed box. And the standard retina mounting hole spacing on the front panel, never heard of that. Oh, this is neat. Specially tapped primary allows easy conversion to 100 volts AC or 220 volts AC. So 120 volts AC is what we'll be using in the Asian market, and 220 most of Europe, South America, etc. There's a mention of the 5 to 10 second power on delay, and the size of the transformer is at 2.2 kilowatt. So they're bragging about its capacity for storage. All right, good stuff. Recommended test equipment. Oh yeah, this is service manual, so they're gonna go over what is needed to calibrate and test this unit properly. Here's the power supply, schematic, performance verification. So these are a number of tests that you can do to make sure it's performing to spec. I see a hum and noise test, frequency response, harmonic distortion. This is cool stuff. We're certainly going to go through some of those things. Maybe not on this unit. This is our renewal stock unit, but this is probably going to end up with a collector, and it's likely to end up in a closet. So we're not going to test this particular unit, but we'll go through this testing regime for our second Model 500 that we've got prior to shipping it. So this is super, super helpful. This is what you would see on the oscilloscope while you're performing this particular test. Okay. And here's a parts list with some diagrams detailing the layout of the boards. Here's an underneath view. We hadn't seen this before. This is probably where you adjust the voltage selection for international use. I see they're using some plastic connectors here for easy modular servicing. And moving on to a parts list, very detailed. This is great, it all folds out. Probably one of the best service manuals we've seen. This is super helpful. They're giving you not only the full schematic, but they're also giving you the component layout. So this is identifying each component on the PC board with the traces on it. And this is an actual picture of the component, which helps speed the troubleshooting process. There's a relay board. It's probably for the power and protection. And here are the actual schematics. All right. So there you go. Service manual. Now moving on to the handbook. This would be the user manual. Looks pretty much untouched at this point. Installation and precautions. This is interesting. It looks like the printing didn't quite land in the right place here. Oh, same here, a list of installation and tables. Yeah, if this were a US postage stamp, it'd be worth a lot of money. Looks like it's been printed incorrectly, and that the wrong pages landed on the wrong stock. Yeah, even here. Some hookup instructions, relative power level. Let's see, they're claiming 500 watts into 4 ohms, which is normal. And this is the same spec sheet that we saw on the service manual. Square wave response charts, harmonic distortion output, response charts. Very cool. This is more of a brochure now than it is an instruction manual. I'm not sure what you would need any of this to install the amplifier, but pretty neat nevertheless. That's that. Here's the authorized service center list. Pretty cool. Let's see, for New York, they list Glen Oak Service Lab in Belrose, New York. New Jersey, Dr. Tech Service Centers. In Fairfield, Electronic Component Service. In Hanover, East Hanover. Oh, this is really old. Here's the warranty registration mailer. Superscope Presents keyboard. Immortals play again in stereo. This must be a brochure for some sort of music. Telling you to save your box. And here's the ubiquitous mounting template. See, back in the era when this was being sold, a lot of folks would mount this into a piece of furniture or into the wall. You know, you sort of saved up your pennies for a long period of time and then sort of splurged on a high-end piece of equipment like this, and then you'd pretty much build it into your house. It was... This is before the days of changing stereo equipment every couple of months. You pretty much just make an investment one time and then either buy a piece of furniture and mount it permanently into a piece of furniture, or I've seen these built into the walls or cabinets. And this is essentially a template for cutting it out so that you know where the cutouts would be, or if you wanted to make a cabinet for it. All right, so yeah, so far it's looking great. Next, we're gonna crack this baby open and see what we see inside. See what sort of things we find that would indicate whether it's been used or not. Next, we're gonna talk about the layout and functionality of the Model 500 Marantz that we just unboxed. We'll go through the front panel, then move on to the back and tell you what each bit is for. Now, it's a pretty simple layout, but I think it's worth seeing. The most unusual thing about the Model 500 is that the speaker connections are actually in the front of the unit. I imagine that is sort of like a homage to the Model 9 monoblock amplifiers. That's when we've seen this sort of connection. It looks like almost the same cover that would be used on the Model 9 tube monoblocks. So, you know, while it makes it a little easier not to have to get behind the unit, certainly the cable routing becomes an issue. So this just pops right out, and we expose the outputs for the left and right channel. It's a 508 binding post, the banana, takes spades and single stranded wire as well. I think you would just pretty much route the speaker cables underneath the unit, pop around here, plug in here. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's not enough depth to actually use banana cables. So unless you're willing to use this amplifier without the cover, there is no way to get a banana cable in there. So you'd have to use a spade or a bare wire. And then there's a set of input terminals as well, also a bit of a problem, right? Any modern connector is going to be way too deep to clear this cover. So you'd have to probably use a 90 degrees RCA connector. And lastly, the power button is behind the cover. Another highly inconvenient thing to have to pull this little cover every time you want to put the amp on doesn't make much sense. Although in this era, the preamp that you'd connect this to would likely have switched power outlets so that when you turn the preamp on, you would also get power to the amplifier. All right, so those are the connections. Let me put this cover back. It just snaps in place. There's spring-loaded retainers on there. All right, and then left and right is essentially mimics the left and right channels. So you've got the meter showing both dBs and watts with different scales. The watts seem to go up to this point, and the dBs go to 0 and then pass to +3. It's a beautiful meter if you see it lit up, but it's pretty faint. You know, unlike Macintosh equipment, which has a pretty bright, noticeable meter, especially on the more modern stuff, the Marantz would just be slightly backlit. So during the day, you could barely tell that the meters are lit. At night in a dark room, they'd certainly glow faintly. It's a pretty cool, subdued look, but very different if you're looking for something bright. We've done LED conversions on these things for people that want a little more pop, and they turn out great. We're able to do an LED conversion without really altering the piece at all, just direct plugins. We've located great LED bulbs for this. So focusing in here, we've got a gain adjustment here. This is a fine volume adjustment for the left channel, and this is the power indicator for the meter. So this selects the range for the meter itself, I believe. Yeah, between 50 to 100, 150 to 300, and 250 to 500. So I imagine that alters the responsiveness of the meter. And then the same thing is mirrored on the right side. Okay, we've got the Great Marantz logo here. Seems to be on a black piece of anodized aluminum. Very cool. And then we've got little set screws here for probably meter calibration to get this to the 0 mark. And obviously we've got some nice matching rack handles. Moving on to the back, the cooling tunnel. We've got the 5 amp supply rail fuses for A and B. This would be left and right. And then another set of inputs and outputs. Oh, I guess this is so that give you a choice between the front or the back. Other thing to notice is that they depict their channels as channel A and channel B, not left and right as most manufacturers do. So it kind of all follows. It fuses for left and right, outputs for left and right, and then the inputs for left and right. Some warnings about what not to do with it. The power cord is a main fuse, is a 15 amp fuse. That's pretty sizable. So what I don't know is, I don't see a selector for front versus back. So I imagine they're both active at the same time. They're just paralleled. So even if you're gonna use the back connectors on this amplifier, it's still pretty inconvenient to have the power in the front. Yeah, so they must be just in parallel. All right, the Model 500 Marantz. All right, I've got the unit open now, and we're looking for any signs of utilization. We've learned a few ways of telling over time whether an amplifier has been used or not, and let's go through it and see if we can find any of those telltales. So, give you a couple close-ups first of all. Here's the output boards. Pretty clean. I don't see much dust on them. One of the things we look for is discoloration on the PC boards below the resistors that receive or generate a high amount of heat. The PC boards tend to discolor below them, especially on this particular design. The resistors themselves are mounted flat against the PC board. So it would normally, this dark blue would turn into a lighter blue. You see a tiny bit of it over here on that particular one. I can't tell if it's discolored or not, but all the other ones seem to be pretty dark along the way. Obviously, yes, dust and debris is a good indicator. This particular amplifier has a perforated top, which is super clean. So any sort of, if this had been out for a while, it would have had a pretty good amount of dust laying on the boards. So no signs of that. Transformer's pretty clean. This residue you see here is actually from the final coating that they put on it. It's a sort of like a lacquer or a varnish to keep it from rusting. So this is pretty normal, and the copper banding is also has a clear coat on it, so that would be normal as well. These caps are clean and shiny, all the writing's intact. Again, I don't see any sort of signs of any dirt or dust, and same for the meters, at least the meter tops. Having a closer look inside, still pretty clean. All right, another way to tell, especially with this design, is to look at the fans and the cooling. Whether it's conventional or active cooling, there's usually some sort of signs around that. This particular model uses an active fan design. So there's an actual tunnel running through this aluminum extrusion. So essentially all the output devices are mounted onto this long aluminum extrusion, and then the fan draws air from this side and pushes it out from the other side. So it's a pretty neat, it's almost like a tunnel cooling system. Come to think of it, I'm not sure the direction. I don't know if this fan pushes or pulls. I'd have to turn it on to find out. But you would normally see dust accumulated along this filter mechanism, or at least this protective mechanism, and then you'd see it on the fan blades themselves, which look pretty clean. Having a closer look at the back. Also looking for signs of dust and debris that accumulates on the top of the binding post or the fuses themselves, and they're also very clean. There's no corrosion on the RCA jacks. Here's the main fuse as well, that's pretty clean. Let's take a look at the other side of the chassis. You know, one of the things, here's the heat sinks. From the other side, much more visible. This is a tunnel I was telling you about, so the air would sort of travel along lengthwise. These feet kind of looked a little suspicious. They're kind of hanging off of the edge of the chassis, but I looked at another unit and it had the exact same configuration, so I guess this is how they came from the factory. Then having another look at the front panel. So we're not quite sure here. I'd love to hear your opinion. Please leave a comment below. Let us know if you have any more questions about this piece. We'll probably be putting it up for sale in the next couple of weeks, along with the other sample that we've got. As mentioned, we've got 2 Model 500s. This one was potentially in the old stock, and the other one which has had some light use, but is in great cosmetic condition. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to our channel. It will keep us motivated. And check us out on our website at skyfiaudio.com. Thanks for watching.